joining us as we are just a little bit away here. Why is that not working? Number lock. Let's try that one. There we go. All right. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. And Bassmaster, good to see you. Mark Ellen, Sherry Knight, looking lovely. Coach Clearfloss, good to see you. Spookles the cat. She is the best cat going right now. She is. She's amazing. And we are officially caught up. Right now, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek here. There he is, everyone, the crypto guru. And there he is. We are 15 seconds away. Super Chat is a great way to support what we do on a nightly basis on this show. Hi, John Hudson. We'll get to his UFO report later on. Grandmaster Joshua, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Let's rock and roll right now. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old baby the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. You know, usually I have a big paragraph written for my guest tonight, but there's only one way to introduce the man tonight. The crypto guru. Enough said right there. Ronald L. Murphy Jr. is literally one of the greatest writers when it comes to everything cryptid and paranormal. If you don't believe me, go on Amazon, check out Ronald L. Murphy Jr., and get one of his books. He is eloquent. He is romantic in his way that he is able to bring passion to the stories of monsters, legends, folklore, everything from werewolves to Dogman and every ghost and alien in between. And I'll tell you, he is one of my best friends in this field. I can honestly say that because I mean it. And anytime he wants to come on this show, damn it, we got time for him because he's just that guy. Crypto Guru, my friend, I bow to you once again.
Well, how are you? I hope I live up to that, Dave. You and I have had a great relationship now for, look, I don't know how long you've been on the air now. It's been, what, 6 years? 7? No.
6 years, 6.5 years.
Is that what it is? Yeah. So we have been together since the very beginning. And whenever I was up and coming, and you gave me the moniker of the Crypto Guru, and I've had it ever since. And if it was not for Spaced Out Radio, I would not be where I am at today, and I tell you that with all sincerity.
Well, you're way too kind to us, my friend, and I mean that. Anybody who has heard of you, talked to you, met you, read your books will always say to everybody, you know, that Ron is literally one of the best. You have one of the greatest reputations out there in the cryptid world, someone who is very no-nonsense, someone who loves to tell a good story and a research story. It's not just a bunch of BS that you're making up because you heard it fifth hand, not second hand, but fifth hand. But you're that guy. And what brings your passion to these topics?
I think that it goes back to my childhood. It goes back to the way I was raised. My mother was very much into this kind of stuff. This being a Friday night, this would be, whenever I was back in elementary school, this would be the time that I would start getting my sleep for the weekend because my mom and I would be watching horror movies all night long on Saturday. And, these are the tame ones. These aren't your slasher movies. This was, your typical Hammer horror movies from England. Some good, good quality stuff there. But we would also watch things like The Legend of Boggy Creek that was coming out at that time, too, in the mid-'70s. and then we would watch, In Search Of. It was just a good time to be alive. But one of the things I had going for me whenever I was younger as well, too, is that in my area of Western Pennsylvania, it became a hotspot for UFO and Bigfoot sightings. And we had people like, the godfather of cryptozoology here in Western Pennsylvania, Stan Gordon. He would be on the radio from Pittsburgh about, once a month talking about encounters that were occurring around where I lived. And my mom and I would take, or my mom would take my brother and I out, and the next day we would go looking for the places where these aliens and these Bigfoot were sighted. So it was a great time to be a kid. And, even though I grew up and, I went to college and everything, this quest for the other has always been with me. I'm trying to illuminate the shadows that are outside my window for the benefit of myself. And if other people are along for the ride, even better.
For you, as you have kind of gone on this journey on your own, it's been a long journey. It's been a tough journey. You've had a lot of personal issues that have come up. You became a single dad in this journey early on of 5 children, and you've done an incredible job with your kids. You now are a grandfather of a beautiful young little lady who I'm sure has your heart wrapped around her like a blanket. And I got to tell you, I mean, the way you have handled things and the ups and downs and everything on a personal level, you've never let it hurt your professionalism and your writing for these topics. And I know what it's like with one child to be a single father, but to have 5, I wouldn't know what that's like. But I'll tell you, man, for you, I just commend that you have faced the demons straight through, and you've won, and you're somebody out there who commands that respect because you give respect back.
Well, you know what? I appreciate that, Dave, because one of the biggest compliments that I could have is, is being a father, because you only get one shot at that, And my daughters, mean a lot to me. And my daughter, who was relatively young whenever she had the baby, I was a little anxious about it, as was she, but everything turned out remarkably well. My daughter works full time as well as going to school full time, so I couldn't ask for a better situation. But about 2 months ago, we actually got matching tattoos on our wrists. Let me see if I can see them. So anchors. So we're each an anchor in each other's lives. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that keeps me grounded is my children. And the other thing is, and this is not, just giving you hyperbole, but in this field, it's good to be around genuine people. Whenever things were going swimmingly for me, some of the hardest times that I ever had in this field was being betrayed by people that you thought were your friends. It's a very difficult field to be in. And I'm sure, Dave, you have some horror stories as well. Yeah, you get involved with people and you assume that they have the same interest out that you have. They become your friends, they become your confidants, and you think that they're there because they want to be in your lives. And it soon shows that, they're jockeying for position. They want something out of you, and it really does hurt. So if it wasn't for people like you, Dave, and it wasn't people for like Eric Altman and, a few others, Ken Gearhart, I would not be here either. So because you've been steadfast throughout this entire journey as well, is the reason I'm still in this world of the supernatural and the paranormal, because it can chew you up and spit you out in no time.
Yeah, I mean, we could do and spend, a week worth of shows just talking about the paradrama that's out there in every field and why anybody with their right set of mind should really not get into this field.
Sure.
Absolutely. But I mean, when you look at it and you sit there and you think, man, I battled through all of this. I've taken all this harassment. I've been called names that I've never been called before in my life, and I'm not getting paid for any of this.
Exactly.
It really is a paradigm on its own, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I mean, you really do wonder why people get involved. I mean, there's a lot of people that get involved because they're pretty, they're talking heads for networks and such. But the people who are really boots on the ground and are pouring over articles and archives, and they've been in it for a while because they have all these questions in their lives that need to be answered. Those are the people I tend to gravitate towards. And like I said, you have been there for me, and a few others have been there for me. And if it wasn't for that grounding and that anchoring that I had from people like you, there is no way that I would have written more than 1 or 2 books. There's no way.
Let's get into it, because people don't want to hear about the drama, and nor do they care. Let's just be honest.
I'm surprised because whenever I talk about this, a lot of people are surprised because they assume that this is a tight-knit group because we're kind of on the fringe, so they think that everybody kind of sticks together, and we're here to say that is not the case.
Oh no, they will absolutely slice your throat for a cup of coffee. It's really true. I mean, I don't know how many times I've caught people, stealing information or stealing others' work and claiming it as their own. I mean, this is a field of made-up titles. It's a field of faux research. Where people claim they're conducting scientific opinion or scientific study, and yet all they're doing is sharing their opinions strongly. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. It really is. And, never mind the money aspect or the business aspect. Somebody is always looking to gouge your eyes out and kick you off the pedestal because they just feel that it's their turn and you have what they want. And I don't like it. Don't like it. It is vicious. And, it's something that I've noticed over the last few months, especially, where I find myself becoming more introverted in this field. I was talking to somebody who I trust in this field, one of my sources, and I hadn't heard from him in a month. Now, this was odd. Like, usually when I text this guy, dude, he texts me back within an hour or two, if not minutes. And all of a sudden, messages he's not reading them. And finally today, he sends me a message, and he says, "No, dude, you didn't piss me off." He goes, "One of the crazies out there gave my phone number to a bunch of people online, and now my phone is blowing up, and I don't want to answer my phone, so I'm taking the month off." And I'm like, well, that's not good for me. It's not good for him, but on a personal level, when him and I talk, we have anywhere like a short conversation is 45 minutes. And it just goes to show that there are very few you can actually trust in this field, Guru.
Yeah, that's true. And the thing about stealing, I mean, that is one of the biggest things. The idea of intellectual property. There's a lot of people out there who are writing books and they call themselves documentarians, which basically means they hear a story, like you had so eloquently pointed out earlier. They hear a story and they simply reprint it. They're not doing any research or anything like that. So how I made my little niche in this market is I look at these kind of things that go bump in the night from an archetypical point of view. They're archetypes. They mean something to us. An archetype is a recurring theme that happens over different cultures and over time in particular places. So I look at the world of the cryptozoological and the world of the supernatural from an archetype point of view. So there's very few people that are going to be able to take that from me because I've kind of established myself in that. And there's really nobody else writing on that. They're writing about encounters and they're writing about this and writing about that. But very few people, if any, that I can name off the top of my head are writing about it from a point of view of looking at it from a psychological and a sociological point of view as well too. The idea of these things meaning something to us much more than just being monsters. There's something that affects who we are as people, and they influence our cultural perspectives as well.
I totally agree. Let's get into some monsters here.
Sure,
that's the main reason why everybody wants to listen tonight, and they want to get right involved with this. Now, the last time we had you on, which was about just over a month and a half ago, we talked, and my listeners in our chat rooms were saying, we need a show about werewolves. We never talk werewolves. Sure, we talk Dogman, Bigfoot, Banshees, sea monsters, whatever, but we always seem to forget werewolves. What's happening on the werewolf front?
Well, it's interesting because my favorite monster ever since I've been a child has been the werewolf. Ever since seeing Lon Chaney's, transformation, I couldn't get enough of this creature. So what is happening in the world of werewolves? It's odd because now the idea of the dogman and the werewolf have become so intrinsically linked together, it's hard to tell one apart from the other. But I think in our argument, there is really no reason why we should separate them in any way. I think we could take them as face value and kind of look and see what's going on in the world of the dogman, because the dogman is so called because it resembles a bipedal canid type of creature, and it has a degree of intelligence as well too. So I think that when we tie these two together, we see that they're very much alive and well around the world. I mean, not only here in Western Pennsylvania, where people are giving dogman sightings at least once a week, and that's not being exaggerating. I mean, people are still seeing these creatures. But if you look around the world, I mean, there's places in South America and Mexico that are still seeing these creatures on almost a daily basis. Now, whenever we get into those kind of cultures, it's very easy to see that there is a repetitiveness to it. So it's almost as if it's a game of telephone where the legend is perpetrating to the point that it's becoming something in and of itself, almost like the development of the chupacabra. But when you look into more of a Western-based development of this creature, it has stayed pretty much unchanged for the past several hundred years. So people in Western Pennsylvania are still seeing something that looks like a very large dog. And when I'm talking about a 7-foot-tall, two-legged animal walking around, peering in their houses at night through their windows, sometimes even talking. And that's the other thing that's strange about the dogman as well too. In many cases, there's reports of this creature actually vocalizing. And the people that have reported this happening, it seems to be something that's very audible and something that's not happening psychically in any way. It seems as if it is something that's actually being, spoken out that's audible. So when we talk about this and we get into the reports a little bit more here in a second, Dave, we can see that this creature still is apparently among us.
My goodness. When I think of werewolves, I don't think of them being real. I don't see, humans changing on a full moon into this animalistic character that grows hair and rips its clothes and goes running and howling at the moon. It's not an Ozzy Osbourne concert here, right. That's for sure. How do we know that there is some validity to this creature?
Well, so see, that's a great point of view, and I think that's the best place to start as well. So what exactly is a werewolf? So the word itself, the W-E-R-E at the very beginning comes from a very old English word, an archaic word that means man. So that's where we get werewolf or wolfman from. And one of the reasons why it was called, that had the adjective in front of it, was that it had an intelligence unlike an animal. But we could also flip it as well too and see that a lot of times people were called a wolf because of the attributes in which they exhibited. So if we go back to the time of the Greek writers, although the idea of a transforming werewolf was quite valid within Greek thought, there were a lot of writers that were saying there was a case of nothing more than mental illness. And that's where we get our word lunacy from, the idea that the moon affects us and it transforms who we are. So the idea of a lunatic, that has a lot to do on the werewolf legend. But absolutely, when we get up into the Renaissance and even before that into the Middle Ages, the idea of something transforming into an animal really wasn't implicit within these legends and these lores. It was somebody that was taking on the attributes of an animal and acting in a way that was more bestial than human. But that's not to say that there was not the belief, and in some cases, almost the proof of a human transforming into a creature as well, too. That's the other thing about this. It's very difficult to to just say we're talking about a mentally deranged human being, because sometimes these people were torn apart to the point that some investigators assumed that a human being wasn't capable of doing such a thing, and an actual wolf had to be involved. So we're talking about people, if this is indeed true mental illness, we're talking about people doing things so heinous that it would be hard for us to wrap our minds around it.
No kidding. I like Andrew's comment in the chat room here. Says, Dave, I have trucker stories that I've heard about truckers reporting dogman type creatures running along their rock quarry trucks in the Nevada desert. Like, that's just some scary stuff going on there, man.
Absolutely. And the thing about that, too, is there is a continuity on those reports. So we talk about these things keeping up with cars. Very early reports by Linda Godfrey, the Beast of Bray Road. Some of the very earliest reports was this creature running alongside and keeping pace with cars going 55 miles per hour. So there's a continuity in these sightings. It's not like that's something that's atypical of what's going on. These creatures are often seen along roads. They're often seen to interact with cars at times, not necessarily getting hit by a car, but sometimes scratching cars or coming up and looking into the beds of pickup trucks. So they will occasionally interact with human beings, but our roads are often the places where these kind of things happen. One of my theories is that if these creatures are indeed flesh and blood, one of the best places for this creature to occupy would be around roadways, because if you think about it, so much roadkill happens around roadways. It's very easy for it to get its meal without having to chase something down.
Absolutely, and I understand that, but what's the fascination between these creatures and humans? We have 2.5 minutes left.
Well, I think getting back to the whole idea that from a very early time, people have been doing things, terrible, terrible things against humanity that seem so heinous that it's hard to recognize the humanity within their actions. So they have often donned the aspects of an animal, so we do not have to admit that we're capable of doing such things. So after our 2 minutes is up, that's something that we can look at even more. But there's also a caveat to that as well, too, that we'll have to get into. So it's a very complicated thing to wrap up in 2 minutes.
Well, I understand that, but start to tease us a little bit.
Okay, so we will talk about a story called the Werewolf of Bedburg, and this happened in Germany. And we will talk about what this guy was capable of doing, and then we'll talk about what the people did to him after he was caught. How about we do that?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Black Rabbit here saying in the chat room, Spaced Out Radio, Dogman are definitely in Canada too. Don't be scared. I know they are in my area. I know that. I've met a gentleman, a First Nations elder that I really highly respect, who told me just a few years ago him and his brother were out hunting, and they were looking for a black bear. Mm-hmm. And what they thought was two black bears 200 yards away, in the scope of the gun, was two dogmen looking at them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the brother looks over to my friend and puts his rifle down and says, "We got to go." And my friend says, "Aren't we going to take that bear?" He goes, "That's not a bear, brother. We need to go now."
Yep.
I mean, that's the reality of it. I don't know what brings it out, but there are these stories happening all the time. I really don't know how I would react, Guru, to running into one of these dogmen werewolf-type creatures.
Well, here in America, one of the earliest reports I've ever got of an actual dogman attack was in 1889, and it was out of Michigan. And there was a gentleman that was reported to be attacked by a pack of 3 bipedal wolves.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
So again, there's a continuity to this. We are covering different cultural aspects, like First Nations to the idea of European immigrants, and we're still seeing continuity.
Guru, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. The crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, on Spaced Out Radio. Monster Talk, Werewolves, Dogmen. Here we go, people. We're in for a good one tonight. The stories start right after this. All right, we're clear, buddy.
All right, excellent.
Good, solid first half hour.
Yeah, it flew by, as a matter of fact. Yeah, I want to get some notes here. I want to look through my notes. Every time I come onto the show, I always bring a lot of notes. So, it's going to be a good one.
Yep. I hear you, man. I hear you. We're going in for a power show tonight.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, this is Guru Power at its best right here, audience.
We have a lot of people on tonight, don't we?
So far on YouTube, we have 131.
That's pretty good, man.
Yeah, that number will go up yet.
It's still early yet.
Smoky Mountain Wanderer, how you doing? Good to see you. Angela Wilbert, welcome to Spaced Out Radio's chat room. She's from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
Cat Ward says, Ronnie, mwah.
I love Cat Ward. I'm glad that she's on.
Yeah, she's good people. Good Canadian kid.
I'm trying to find the chat room here. Where do I go to find the chat?
I'll make it easier for you. Go on our screen that you're looking at me on.
Yeah.
Go to the top right. There's a little box that says comments.
Yeah.
Click on that. You'll be able to see it all.
Let me see here. Oh, that's a lot easier.
Now, I don't know if you could type in from a guest side on that.
Okay.
Like right below all the chat. I don't know if it says post a comment. There's the gorgeous and talented Jessica McCreary. Give us a wave, Jessica. She's always fashionably late, even when she's not.
With any smartphone or tablet.
Stone Hobbit, how are you?
Oh, that's got to be one of the greatest nicknames.
There she is. Throwing us some kisses. She's been with us for a year. The lovely and talented Shiny Ray is here. You know what this lady forced me to do? Shiny Ray?
What's that?
Remember when I had my big beard?
I do.
Well, Shiny Ray is hearing impaired.
Okay.
She couldn't read my lips through my beard. So, I thought, you know what? I've never had anybody say that before. And obviously, if she's struggling, there are other people who are struggling. And one of the people that I work with on my daytime job is hearing impaired as well. So I shaved my beard for her.
You know what? You're a hell of a guy, Dave.
Yeah, I'm that guy. I am totally that guy.
You are that guy.
Ross Smith, how are you? So that way I keep my beard nice and clean now so she could actually read my lips if she needs some help.
Wow.
Yeah. Drew Morris, what's happening in Springfield, Pennsylvania? I just want to go to a Springfield in the United States. Just once.
Yeah. There's a lot like in the Midwest, like, Ohio and the state of Indiana and Illinois. There's Springfields all over the place.
Just to say I've been to a Springfield.
Sure, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Clean these up. Put those there. Clean that up. Put that there. All right, Guru, we got 30 seconds. Thank you so much to Andrew, to Murray, to Michael for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Hi, gorgeous Lynn Sows. How are you? Nice to see you back. And thank you to all of our new subscribers. Kian, how are you? Or Kian? I'm sorry. I always butcher your name, my friend. But I always appreciate when you're here. I'm from Canada. Here we go. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you have missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with the crypto guru, Ronald L. Murphy Jr. You can find any of his books on Amazon. Highly suggest you do. In my opinion, he is one of the best writers of everything crypto natural, if we can use that term. I just made that up. Crypto natural. I like that. It works for me. Guru, welcome back.
Hey, thanks a lot, Dave. I'm glad to be here, man. Talking about my favorite subject.
Yes, werewolves tonight, all night long. Let's get into it. I know you. I know that right before the break, you wanted to get into where I asked, people's fascination with werewolves.
Right. So, in the idea of a transformation as opposed to non-transformation. So whenever I get asked this question, which is all the time, I always look at the one particular case from right around 1589 in Germany. And this guy's name was Peter Stumpf. And he was called the Beast of Bedburg or Bedburg werewolf, a lot of different names. But anyways, he was about 55 years old. And he was on a killing spree for basically 25 years of his life. He would claim, quite literally, that he would transform into an animal. He was practicing the arts of black magic. He was said to have summoned the devil. The devil gave him a belt, a wolfskin belt to wear. And whenever Peter would put it around his waist, he would transform into a wolf. Okay, so that being said, we'll talk about some of the heinous things that he did. He started off by killing livestock, lambs and goats. Then he would move up to bigger animals like cows and horses. And then he started to feed upon his own children. He killed his own son. He claimed to have eaten the child's brain. And then he moved on to men and women. One of his favorite targets was pregnant women, who he would kill and then take the fetus out of them and eat the fetuses. So he was basically looking for that. So a terribly, terribly heinous man who probably killed around 14 people in his life, if not more. Claimed he did indeed transform into a wolf. He was captured by the authorities, and then he was subsequently tortured. Now, this is where the idea of somebody doing something so heinous that we can see that it's hard for us to accept that a human being is capable of doing such things. But let's talk a little bit about the people that were going through his Inquisition. These people took him and they put him on the rack, and they proceeded to break every bone in his body. After breaking literally every bone in this man's body, they went about the disemboweling of him and removing all of his entrails while he was still alive. And whenever he finally succumbed to his torture, he was then set on fire. Now, as his body was consumed by the flames, They bring his little daughter to the site to watch her dad being consumed by the flames, and then thinking that somehow this curse may have been passed on from the father to this young daughter, they then threw her into the fire. So we are talking about something that we would call today a serial killer, okay? He was doing very, very horrible things that we could not find imaginable. But also we have to understand the time in which they were being committed as well. This was a time whenever the law could do anything with a person that was accused of something. So this was a very, very violent time. So we can think that these werewolves are also a product of the time in which they live. So part of my job as somebody that follows archetypes is to look at them within the milieu of the culture in which they survive. So when we talk about the werewolf of the medieval period and of the Renaissance period, these are something that are hiding off in the periphery. They're right beyond the comprehension of the normal world, of the civilized world. Also, because these were terribly religious times, the transformation had to involve the act of the devil. There had to be good and evil. There had to be this structuralism going on as well, too. So a person could not transform on their own. It had to be something that was given to him as a gift by Satan himself. Now, it's interesting because when we look at werewolves now in the 21st century, and believe me, they're out there, they're often seen in shows that are geared to teenagers. Shows like The Descendants or there's a lot of different vampire shows out there. My daughter is insanely attached to these shows, but they involve witches and vampires and werewolves, the same way the Twilight series involved werewolves as well too. Now they're kind of sexy. They don't stick out on the periphery anymore. They're right involved with us. You know, they go to high school with normal kids. It's not so much as a curse anymore. It's more of a gift. They are able to assume this kind of demeanor and have these kind of attributes that the normal clumsy high school kid wished that they would have. You know, this surety, this bravado to them. So it's very interesting to see how these creatures evolve in subsequent generations and to see where they're headed to. So if we would go back 500 years, the werewolf would have been something that would be a demonic creature. It would have been something to fear at night because at night that's whenever the devil comes out to play. But nowadays we see in our world around us reports of seeing these creatures in the daylight. They're no longer thrown into the shadows anymore. They're more out in the open. So as a researcher and a writer, I think that's very, very interesting.
We have the crypto guru Ronald Murphy here tonight on Spaced Out Radio. So how did this story come over to North America that there are werewolves running around here?
Okay. Well, the idea of the werewolf obviously came over with the immigrants. But that's really not... it's a lot more complicated than that. So we brought over the word werewolf. But believe you me, before there was any kind of Columbian contact, we are talking about the Pacific Northwest that have legends of the werewolf going back thousands of years. Their totem poles have the wolf emblazoned on them in the Pacific Northwest. The Mississippian culture in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee had the cult of the wolf. Now, this is extremely interesting, and whenever I give a talk on this creature, this is one of the things that I pull in. So we're talking about a culture that existed. We're going back, probably 3,000 years, 2,000 years, at the most, to be very conservative. But we're going back into antiquity at this point. The cult of the werewolf existed because we have found within their burial mounds humans that were literally deformed after death in order to look like a wolf. And let me tell you what happens. So the cultures would exhume the body, and go as far as removing the jaws and the teeth of the person that was deceased and implant a wolf skull inside the face itself. So it would look like the person was decomposing, was not only part man, but also part wolf. To make the transformation whole, they would also wrap the body in some sort of fur. So it would look like there was this complete melding of the two different creatures into one. So when we talk about the cult of the werewolf, that is something that goes back into the earliest times of the prehistoric Indian nations of the East Coast here in the United States. What is so interesting about this as well is these cultures are in the same area where we have the reports of dogmen. So there's this overlapping. There again, we talk about continuity. One of the things that makes the dogman so interesting, looking at it over a cross-cultural perspective, is they're often associated with the world of the dead, of burial mounds. If we think about Anubis, that goes back maybe 6,000 years, Anubis, the god, the jackal-headed god of the Egyptians, was shortly there before the earliest kingdom was established. So they had a tradition going back of a person that was able to assume the shape of a wolf. And isn't it interesting that they presided over the world of the dead? Now we come to the New World, we come to the United States, we come to the First Nations people in Canada, and some of these sites that with these burial mounds, this is where these dogman creatures are often sighted. Linda Godfrey pointed it out as well too, that they're often seen around the burial sites around the Great Lakes region. I spoke to a gentleman that's told me that he saw a dogman outside of a burial mound in upstate New York. So these creatures that were reported, like I said, in the Mississippian culture, 2,000 years ago, we are still getting reports to this day where that culture used to exist. One of the cases is a place called Land Between the Lakes. I'm not sure if you ever covered this on the show before, but this is a reclamation project where they flooded an area between Kentucky and Tennessee and put in a vast lake that was now being used for recreational purposes. But there's a story that goes that there was a creature, a dogman-like creature, a werewolf creature, for lack of a better word, that would roam this area. And it was not a good idea to put in a lake there to make this recreational, but they did it nonetheless. And people that venture into that area are in danger. And one report was that there was a person that was archery hunting, and they found his body still in the tree stand, completely obliterated. Something came in, climbed the tree, and completely destroyed the person that was up there. And then very close to this time, there was a family that was camping in an RV, and they found the family torn to shreds, and they found one of their children's arms draped from a tree a few hundred yards away from the site. And this all takes place in that area where these Native Americans 2,000 years ago were making their deceased into this combination of wolf and man.
Guru, normally I don't ask questions until hour number 2, but I like this one by Michael, who is saying, what's the difference between werewolves and skinwalkers?
Okay. To me, this is my explanation. Skinwalkers seem to be more spiritual. They seem to derive from something other than humanity. They seem to be magical, almost shamanistic creations, as if they were summoned or if they somehow transcended into our world, if that makes any sense. They seem to be capable of taking on different shapes, not only wolf shapes, but also the shapes of human beings as well, too. So, to me, at least, they more reside in the world of the jinn than in the world of what we would call the werewolf.
Interesting. Yeah, and let's also note too that skinwalkers are supposed to be shaman that have gone rogue.
Right. So some that have gone rogue, there's still human quality to them. Oftentimes people are reporting hearing whistles or their name being called or these kind of very human aspects coming from these creatures in order to get the people off the trail, to lead them into something far more dangerous. But absolutely, it seems to me as if there is this. And indeed, it could very well, Dave, be originating from a time whenever the shaman had entered into this kind of state and assumed something that they could no longer break its hold of. To think about a shaman, it is the ability to go from this world into another world and to be a conduit. So it's taking yourself, emptying yourself out, and allowing yourself to be a vessel for something else. Now, we talk about possessions and everything like that. So you could imagine somebody that was emptying themselves out and something like the jinn would enter them or something that would take on the name of a skinwalker would enter them and what kind of chaos could ensue thereafter.
Ronald Murphy, the crypto guru, is here tonight on Spaced Out Radio. So what's the difference then between a dogman and a werewolf?
Okay. And another excellent question. This is just my take. When we talk about werewolf, we automatically assume there's some sort of transformation that takes place. A dogman, it seems as if this cryptid is indeed that form all the time. If that makes any sense. Yeah. That there's no necessary transformation that needs to take place.
All right. So one said to be part human, the other one said to be full animal.
Full animal, but that does not act solely on instinct. It may be, this may be one of the new. This is a new cryptid on the block, but it may be one of the oldest cryptids as well too, because there have been reports of this kind of creature for thousands of years. Like I said, we can talk about the Egyptian take on this, in the next after break as well too. These creatures have been around with us for quite some time. We call them dogmen now because they kind of have this new status, but it's not like they just appeared out of nowhere. They've always been around. We're just noticing them more, and I think that we're starting to separate them from other kind of bipedal creatures that walk around in the woods at night as well too. We have to understand that we could go back only 100 years ago. Actually, no, we can go back only a little over 50 years ago before the word Bigfoot was in our vernacular. Before that, we had wild man, we had goblin, we had all these other kind of names to call it, but we never called it Bigfoot. So think about this as well, too. How many times Bigfoot might have been cited or a dogman might have been cited. Again, so we never really separated the two until very, very recently. So I think a lot of people that have said that they've seen Bigfoot may indeed have seen Dogman as well, too. Before, how much longer do we have to go on break?
We have about 5.5 minutes.
All right, let me tell you this story here real quick because this will kind of tie things in together. One of the first expeditions I ever went on was with Eric Altman, who will be your guest next month, and a gentleman by the name of Sam Sherry. He was an older gentleman who claimed that he had seen a Bigfoot, and he spent the rest of his life, literally the rest of his life, trying to capture one or showing proof that that these things were out there so people wouldn't think that he was nuts. So we were walking in the woods one time up on the Chestnut Ridge, and the first time I ever got a chance to meet the gentleman, he was older, but he was very spry, and he had this kind of devilish sparkle in his eye. And he was one of those kind of people that whenever the words left his mouth, you knew immediately that he was genuine. He was not telling, he wasn't lying to you. But he was telling me about his Bigfoot encounters. He said that he had seen two types of Bigfoot. One was the big kind of lumbering forest giant that everybody thinks about. Very benign, kind of like a guardian of the woods, if you were. And then he came to a stop and he looked at me and he said, but there's another type of Bigfoot out here as well, too. He said it's much thinner than the other Bigfoot. And its face comes out almost into a muzzle, and it hunts in packs. Now, this was, I believe, 1999 whenever he told me this story. I had never heard about Dogman before, but immediately whenever he told me this, the image that came into mind was a werewolf. You know, he was describing something that he had seen out there that he called another species, another type of Bigfoot, when in reality, I think that he was seeing two very different creatures.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, werewolves are very aggressive towards people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why are they aggressive towards humans? Like in the horror movies, we always see them chasing down the young teenage couple or the woman in distress. Why go after people?
We're very easy, my friend. We are so from the very beginning, and I'm talking about from the very beginning, the name that we get for werewolves, which is lycanthrope, comes from this Greek king named Laocoon. Okay, so that's where we get the name from. His first commission of murder was against a child. Whenever we talk about this constant connection in all these werewolf tales, it almost always involves predation of children. And it's one of those sad, very, very sad things about the werewolf mythos. But alongside that, when we talk about regular human beings, we do not have claws. We don't run very fast. We don't have the wherewithal to really defend ourselves against these kind of creatures. And after we come back, we have to talk at length about the Beast of Gévaudan, which is really one of the most documented cases. But I think that case will show how easy it is to prey upon human beings. And I think that one of the reasons why it's not simply a damsel in distress, because werewolves, the werewolf tells, the dogman tells, there's no problem with them killing livestock. That happens all the time. But whenever food becomes a little bit of a scarcity, people will very, very readily fill the menu.
Okay, so with this creature, is it much like a vampire where you have to invite it into your home in order for it to cross that line?
No, nothing like that. No. These things will come look for you. And there has been this very strange case in the middle of Maine where people said that their new house that they had bought was under siege of werewolves. That in the middle of the night, these things would come. It would tap on the windows. It would try both doors at the same time, the back door and the front door. And it would even go as far as calling out one of the members in the household's name, trying to get them out. So it's not like they're as tactful and as gentlemanly as a Dracula or a vampire. These things are definitely working on a mind of their own, and they would be the ultimate predators if we are to believe all these stories.
That is just incredible. I mean, could you imagine what that would be like hearing this?
Well, okay, that goes back to the idea of the skinwalker as well, too. The idea of the skinwalker is a lot of times they're around and you don't even see them, is because you hear disembodied voices, you hear a woman crying, you hear a woman screaming, you hear your name being called, you hear disembodied laughter. So whenever we talk about the idea of the werewolf or the wolfman, that's where the humanity comes into it, isn't it? It's that kind of attempt at copying who we are, but it's never quite possible to completely duplicate it. There's always something unnatural about it, but they still try to get in any way they can by latching on to that human side of who we are.
That's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. I don't know what it would be like to experience that. We'll talk more werewolf. Dogman, the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, is here. And we're having a good time with the guru tonight. If you love werewolves and Dogman and other creatures of the night, like Vinny finally showed up in our chat room. We'll have more in hour 2 of Spaced Out Radio. All right, we're clear?
Excellent.
I'll let you chat with the audience. I'm just going to run my dogs outside, okay?
That's good. I will do that. So whenever I chat with the audience, I like to go onto the comments section and see what people are saying here.
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. And I like whenever people talk about me too. So somebody said this guest is great. I love that. Okay, Betty Spaghetti, I think that we covered out this before. The idea of breakfast for dinner is completely something that we can never discuss again. The two are diametrically opposed to each other. Great guest, Night Gazer. See, anytime you do this to me, I actually love this. Western Pennsylvania, Flyers or Pens, you got to go with the Penguins, buddy. Solar Warden. Although I'm not a huge hockey fan, but I think that if I would go to more games, So angels are life. Where does the word lichen come from? Lichen comes from King Lycaon. He was in Arcadia. We'll have to remind Dave to come back because this is such an interesting story. But yeah, it's derived from it's an eponymous word that derives from a human being. I will get to a werewolf encounters where the werewolf speaks. Absolutely. Somebody also texted me and asked me if I was drinking beer. I am drinking root beer, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it. I need some sugar to keep me going, so no real beer here tonight. So, Paranormal Heart Podcast, Ron, you need to sell those hats you're wearing, and I would autograph them. I could look into that. I think that would be good. Do you think any strange experience? Okay, Apollo 11, we could talk about that as well, too. I did not buy Bitcoin, although I think 416 Bitcoin probably is a robot. Is that true? I don't know. But I would like to get into cryptocurrency. Eve, I'm stranded here. Just pretend it's a tropical island. Sounds very, very interesting. And I have a good imagination. Let's see here. Plum Island is very interesting as well, too. I truly appreciate the way. That's, you know what? Overlander Canada. I really appreciate that so much. And we could come on and do a Jersey Devil talk at one time as well, too. I'm trying to get right now, I'm in the process of getting a partner to go on expeditions with me. And because Pennsylvania is so close to the Pine Barrens, I would love to make that work and do a live feed from the Pine Barrens. So that's something that may happen relatively soon if all this stuff will work out for me. And things sometimes work out for me, and we'll see what happens. Let's see. Yeah, that's right. Let's see. My cheek face bleeding, so my eyes can't fully see the. Okay, great. Contour cosmique. Let's see what else. You sound educated. Do you have any degrees? Vinny Barbarino. I actually have a degree in literature. I have a master's in history. I also have a master's in educational administration, and I have a master's in family development as well too. So yeah, and that's a good thing too, because whenever I was studying literature and whenever I was studying history, there would be all these great allusions to things like wild men and werewolves and vampires. You really don't even have to read between the lines. There's a lot of material out there. So really, I grew closer, even though I loved this stuff as kids. I actually grew closer to these things the older that I got because they were so fleshed out in the literature and the history that I was reading. And of course, Kat wants to discuss the Loup Garou, which is that French Canadian werewolf up there in Canada that was brought down to New Orleans by the Cajun folks, right? Is that what I'm thinking of? Yeah. Let's see here. has avoiding confirmed. Let's see, Dave and SOR. Yes, yes. Are there werewolves in Wheeling, West Virginia? Tom, my buddy Tom is in the house as well too. I think there probably are werewolves in West Virginia. I love it. No, you know what though? Have you heard Psalm 22:21 as a word against dogmen? I have not heard that. Although I do know Psalm 22 very much because I have a minor in religious studies. But what's so cool about Psalm 22 is that it talks about these animals that will come against you. Sometimes I know what you're referring to. Sometimes that is translated as, it can be translated as bulls. I've seen it translated as lions, and I've also seen it translated as wolves as well too. But very, very interesting. But if you need to pray to a saint against werewolf attacks, Saint Hobart is the person that you pray to.
All right, Ron, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we are going to come back here in about 25 seconds. A big thank you to Ed, Michael ×2, Betty Spaghetti, Fabster, Snakes, Andrew, and Murray for the amazing super chats tonight. Really do appreciate it. We'll get to more of your questions as we come on. Thank you to all the veterans who are listening to this show. Hey, Excalibur, good to have you back, buddy. Thank you for coming on in. And here we go, everyone. Let's hang on out for hour 2.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. And thank you to everyone tuning on in or on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Elytriferous. Elytriferous is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Mumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. The Crypto Guru is back talking werewolves and Dogman all night long, as the Guru is one of the best authors when it comes to everything cryptid, folklorish, and legendary. His website, thecryptoguru.org, I believe.
I think it's .net. .net. Yes.
All right. Ronald L. Murphy Jr. on Amazon if you want to check out his books. So let's check it on out. Guru, welcome back.
Thanks a lot, Dave. I can't believe how quickly our time flies here. But if it wasn't for these great audience that you had, this could really drag. There's so many excellent questions on these things.
Oh yeah, everybody loves a good werewolf story, my friend.
Well, they're intelligent. They're intelligent people as well too. Don't get me wrong. Look, I'm glad that they're here for me. But they come in. I don't care if you're talking about ghosts or UFOs. They're always here with these kind of questions. So. The best in the business.
We're pretty blessed around here, my friend. Pretty blessed, I could tell you that. Guru, I want to get into the werewolf situation with you because do you really believe that there are humans who have werewolf-like qualities, that when the full moon comes out, the only thing that's going to stop them from transforming is a silver bullet?
Well, I will tell you my story that I had. Okay, so growing up in Western Pennsylvania and being in Western Pennsylvania, there's not a lot of stuff here. I'm about 35 miles outside of Pittsburgh. So I am in a very rural area where we'll get deer in the yard and turkeys and stuff like that. So there's really not much to do here. So people tend to gravitate to have these kind of notions, these kind of interests to like little shops, like little new age shops and such. So it just so happened that one of my friends had a new age shop called Magical Manor in a town where I grew up in Blairsville. And she would get a great selection of people who were practicing pagans, who were, into spirituality. And there would also be people in there that would get a lot of sightings of strange creatures. So there was one lady that kept on coming into the shop, and she was telling us that she had found herself a boyfriend. She was a single mother. She had been looking for some time, and she finally met the guy of her dreams. As a cat jumps up on me, she finally meets the guy of her dreams, and he's coming to live with her. They met online. This is truly destiny. They found each other. So in about a week, she starts bringing him into the shop as well, too. He was very quiet. He kind of stayed to himself over in the corner. It's really hard to describe how he was. Introverted is not the word. More like very painfully, very painful in social situations. Almost bordering on an autistic spectrum, I would say. But so she would bring him in, and he wouldn't talk. But after a while, he started to come into the shop by himself, not saying anything, just looking around, sometimes making, little comments about some crystals or such. But one time he came in, and he said, "I have something to get off of my chest." He said, I am a werewolf. Now, we immediately thought that this guy was, insane, right? I mean, there's nothing else to think. But after this admission, he went into some details. He said that his father was a werewolf, and whenever the transformation occurred, and it wasn't something that occurred with the cycles of the moon, it was obviously something biochemical to him, but you could feel it actually coming upon you. They would take the dad downstairs. The mother would take the dad downstairs. They would chain him in the basement. They would lock the basement door, and then he and his brothers and sisters and the mom would physically leave their home for about a week and then come back after the transformation process was completed. But the reason why he brought this out to us was that he felt that if he transformed, he would do something to the child, his girlfriend's child. And again, like I talked about earlier, in these werewolf accounts throughout history, children were often the focus of the predations of a werewolf. So he was afraid that he was going to hurt the child, and he needed to get as far away from his girlfriend and her child that he could. So a few days later, the girlfriend comes in and said that my boyfriend, I have no idea where he is. I have no idea. He left. Nobody said anything to her because we really didn't know what this gentleman was capable or not capable of doing. And we didn't really understand if his story was plausible or not, because this is, of course, somebody just telling us the way that he was feeling. So about a week later goes by, and then he comes into the shop by himself. And he said, "I did indeed transform, but I got as far out of town as I possibly could." And he went to this place very near to where I live now called Livermore. It's a very isolated area. The Army Corps of Engineers came in and took it over. It's all flood territory right now. There's only one way in and one way out, and that's the same way. But if you were going to transform and you wanted to stay hidden, that would be the place to do it, in a relatively well urbanized area, away from towns and everything. So he claimed he went down there and he transformed in this wilderness area. But while he was down there, he ran into a female werewolf, and they ran that area together because apparently this female werewolf went down there so she wouldn't prey upon human beings either. So these stories that I was hearing was fascinating. It was, a psychological insight, at least into this way this gentleman's mind was working. He said he didn't want to hurt the child, so you would think that he had some sort of proclivity to maybe hurt children or whatever. But whenever he came back into the shop after he claimed that he transformed, he did exhibit some physical changes. His cheekbones seemed higher. It seemed as if his face was somehow misshapen or transformed in some way. As the story goes, he ended up leaving again. And this time he went back to California and was never heard from again. So, all of your listeners out there, maybe the best place to meet somebody is not on Tinder because you don't know what you might be getting. But what's so fascinating about this area, Livermore, it's prone to Bigfoot sightings, UFO sightings, hauntings, and now apparently there's werewolves down there. So shortly after this case, I decided to do a nighttime investigation down there. And it was right around midnight. And all of a sudden, and this is where the idea of the paranormal world there's really no gray area. Things start kind of blending into each other. But when we were in the area where he claims that he had transformed, my partner and I, that I was down there with one of my investigative partners, we started to see what appeared to be static electricity forming in the air around us. It looks almost as if you pulled a cover off of your bed and that little bit of static electricity, except it was in the air around us. It was as if the air was becoming electrified. We had no idea what was going on, but we knew instinctually it was time to get the hell out of there. So we start heading back to where we parked our cars, and it's about a mile back there. This is no place to play around. This is pretty dense area. And like I said, it's not a very well-marked area at all. There's one trail that goes through there. But as we start making our way back to where our vehicles are, we noticed a light that just kind of emanates in front of us. About 100 yards off, we went back and measured it. It was about 8 foot off the ground. It looked as if somebody lit a flare. The flare ignited. It held its blaze for maybe 1 second, and then it just kind of went off again. But after that blaze ignited, something then was immediately in the woods. Now, we talk about portals, we talk about all these kind of things opening up and everything. I'm not sure what happened, but all that I know that after that emanation of this electrical light came on, something then starts pacing beside us in the woods off to our right. We never saw it, but we knew in our minds what the thing looked like. We know that it had this orangish, yellowish eyes. We knew that it was on 4 legs, but we knew that it was capable of going bipedal if it wanted to. And the gentleman and I who was with me, we both knew that it had some sort of snout, and we could see within our mind's eye these teeth, okay? Again, psychologically imprinted in our minds from this creature, or if it was some sort of wishful thinking on our part, I have no idea. All we know is that there was something following us in the woods, to the point that we were becoming very, very frightened. And we looked down, and we were no longer on the path anymore. We had veered off the path, and now we were up literally waist deep in bushes and jaggers and everything like that. And what had happened at this next juncture is really what kind of gives me the shivers up the spine. So whatever was following us on the right-hand side was keeping pace with us. But off to the left and about a few hundred yards away from where we were is a very old cemetery. From that cemetery, I heard my name being called just one time. It was just Ron. But it was loud enough and audible enough to know that we knew that we would have, if we followed that voice, we would get back on the trail, which we did. So if we did not hear that voice, we were going to get further and further into this thicket, and that is where this thing, I believe, wanted us to go. So without something calling my name, we would not have found the trail to get back to the car. So after my name was called, we found the trail quite quickly. And whatever that was following us never left the underbrush, but it did escort us the entire way back to where we're parked before it left. So that is one of those situations where we were looking for a supposed werewolf, and a lot of very weird things was going on as well, too. I don't know if that was a human being that transformed into a werewolf. I don't know if it was a dog man. What was that light? I have no idea. But that is a story that has been really keeping me going for all these years, because I truly want to get to the bottom of that. And I think that if you would talk to other investigators in Western Pennsylvania, especially whenever you have Eric Altman on next month, how many people will say that they experience these strange lights in the woods? Again, I don't know how it all comes into play, but that is my story regarding the werewolf and regarding hearing my name being called as well.
Maybe you'll understand when I say this, and maybe many of our experienced listeners will as well. When you have an experience of something, you know that energy that it creates, and your body remembers that energy pattern. So if you're around a ghost, you usually feel heavy on your shoulders. If you have extraterrestrial activity, people will say that you feel high as a kite, like you're spinning around, like want to go, like where is it, where is it, where is it? And people who have Bigfoot energy coming around them, they have a sense of calmness but fear at the same time. People who are around Dogman tend to have an absolute shuddering of fear. The energy feels very heavy, like something is telling you, get the heck out of here now type of energy. Do you know what I'm saying about that, Guru?
Yeah, I absolutely,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, getting back to the idea of the archetype, one of the reasons why we have these instincts of flight or fight is because we had to have had, and this is a little scary to think about. You know, we've been in our present forms on this planet for about 200,000 years. You know, that's how, you know, we're setting any religion aside and everything. If you would look at the evolutionary opinions that are out there, that we have been in our present form for about 200,000 years on this planet. It is my suggestion that the things that we call werewolves and the things that we call Bigfoot and all these other kind of monsters have been with us throughout this evolutionary process, to the point that our interactions with these creatures were on a regular basis. Now, as we have ascended to primacy on this planet, and we've pushed these creatures now into areas where few people travel, but we still remember them in our DNA. They're embroidered into our DNA. So even if we don't see them, we understand them, if that makes any sense to you, Dave. That that is part of our collective unconscious, and that we have this as a cultural folk memory, and no matter where we are, and no matter what our station is life, that these creatures, because they had been with us for all these thousands of years, they still impact us to today. They are stuff of nightmares. And the reason they're stuff of nightmares is because they can become archetypes to us human beings.
Very true. Very true. That leads to Michael's question. What's the difference then between a hellhound and a dogman?
A hellhound, excellent question. Okay, so what happens in the Middle Ages? We start having these ideas of churches being either under attack or being guarded by dogs. So the hellhound is literally that. It probably derives from Cerberus, you know, the idea of the hound of hell in Greek mythology. So what happens is churches in the Middle Ages start feeling as if they're coming under attack. And not only feeling it, but in one particular time, and I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but I think it was in the mid 1500s. There was a terrible storm. Again, getting back to the idea of electricity, there was a terrible storm, and one church these two churches were about 7 miles apart from each other. But at the exact same time, this is what happened. As the storm starts rising, a wolf, a dog, a hellhound, enters this one church, goes down the aisle, specifically looking for its target. It finds a man and it finds its young son. It goes up there. It rips the throats out of both of these people. A couple people try to lay their hands on the wolf to get the wolf out. They die just by touching this creature. And as it leaves the church, it scratches down the door, and that scratch mark is still there to this very day.
No way.
If you want to go over there and take a look at it. Now, 7 miles from this place, at the exact same time, another black hound enters the church and, again, kills several people. Everybody that witnessed that creature killing those people at that church were all dead within a year's time. So this is a very interesting thing whenever we come up with the idea of the hellhound. Now, there's also something at this time called the church grim. And this probably goes back to the pagan origins or the pagan influences on Christianity, because it was believed that if you were going to build a church, that you would want it guarded by a dog. So sometimes, especially in the Greco-Roman world, you would literally take a dog and you would sacrifice it and you would bury it under your temple grounds, and it would act as a spiritual protector of that place. By the time you get to Catholicism, that probably wasn't going on, although I would not put it past anybody to take a dog and to kill it and put it in there as a protection. I'm sure that it did happen. But a church grim was a dog that was used to protect the grounds of the church and the cemetery of the church from the devil himself. So these are these black church grims. Now, what is so cool about the church grim is we know that there is some evidence to support that these things were tied into the werewolf dogman legend. In Sussex, in England, it's been about 10 years ago, there was the unearthing on church grounds of a dog that stood on its hind legs, would have been over 7 feet tall and well over 200 pounds. I never was able to find the DNA results concerning this particular creature. But we do know, at least in this instance, that the idea that there were actual huge dogs used to protect churches was something that was regularly used. And again, are these supernatural dogs? Are these people that were capable of transforming into something? We don't know. But if you look at the legends and you look at the folklore, these creatures were out of the ordinary, let us say.
No kidding. Guru, I know we have about 1 minute here before we got to go to break, but the fact that this goes back in a lot of lengthy history, let's bring it to this timeline. Are there any quality stories out there of recent, say the last 50 years, of people being attacked by werewolves?
No, we absolutely. Do you want to do it now, or do you want to do it whenever we come back?
Give us a short 45-second one.
All right, so it was just about 10 years ago in California. A man who believed that he was a werewolf and he believed that he was married to a she-wolf actually went next door and shot their neighbor because they believed that he was a vampire and he was invading in on their territory. So that's one of the stories that we have. But the idea of Richard Ramirez, even when we look at that, the famous Night Stalker, he believed that he would be able to transform into a creature and actually would drink and lap up human blood. So the idea that there are not only being vampire cults out there and serial killers that kill under the pretense that they're doing this under vampiric qualities, we also have people who have aligned themselves with werewolf lore and have done, these kind of murders and going as far as eating brains and things like that. So
the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, continues with werewolf talk on Spaced Out Radio right after this break. Stay tuned. The guru returns right after this. All right, we're clear.
All righty. I could read this all day long. This is my favorite part. The comments. Love the comments.
Yeah, they're good people. We're up to, what are we up to? Well, we're at 188 on YouTube right now.
All right.
We were at 190, but a couple dropped out for the commercial. They'll be back.
Yeah. All right, my friend. How long do we have? I'm going to go get a drink of water.
You got about 4.5 minutes.
Wow. Holy cow.
You got time.
Yeah, I got time. I'll be right back.
Mm-hmm. You got time. You got time. Now you guys are stuck here with me. NorCal Detecting. What is going on? Welcome to our chat room. All right. And Super Duke. How's Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio? If you're not signed up for World Bigfoot Radio here on Instagram, you need to do that. You need to. Why not? Remember, if you have any questions for the guru, please put them in capital letters if you're in one of our chat rooms. If you're new to this channel and wondering what the Sam hell is going on, why isn't the show going on? Because we have to time out for our terrestrial radio stations. So we have to take breaks in order to appease them. We're on 6 radio stations around North America. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm pretty happy about that. Hopefully one day we'll get some more. But that's kind of what we're doing here. So you guys kind of get the behind the scenes of everything, whether you're listening on our Spreaker feed like Revolution Radio or KPNL, or whether on the YouTube or Twitch feed, you get the behind the scenes look at everything. Hello, gorgeous DM. How are you? She is a Red Deer Rebel, that's for sure. And yeah, the Guru's awesome. The Guru is awesome.
I heard my name being called and I had to come back.
Oh, yeah. No. We still got time, brother.
Okay, cool.
We still got time. Mennonite Abe, how's the fire going? The fires, the one below me is just trying to think. It's about 18 miles from me. Watching the helicopters battle it all day long. Yeah. The gorgeous and talented Jessica McCreary says, hello, Crypto Guru. I'm originally from Indiana, Pennsylvania, and grew up there. You are an amazing guest.
Well, it's odd because, Jessica, I don't know if you and I had ever met, but my first encounter with what would be called, my first Bigfoot encounter, and the first time I ever met Eric Altman was up in Indiana, PA, up in White's Woods. Where are you at now, Jessica?
We'll get her to find out. All right, Tall Drath.
And is she single? I'm not sure.
Yes, ladies, just so you know, if you're in the Pennsylvania area, the Guru is looking for a date. He is looking for a date. Hey, Sean, how you doing? All right, we will get to your questions when we come back from the break here. Ron, when you mentioned that guy who thought he was a werewolf and killed his neighbor who he thought was a vampire, that's also sounding more like meth and psychosis.
Well, sure. And that's the thing, right? We are in the 21st century. There are so many things that are happening now, like the idea of the zombies down in Florida because they were taking, bath salts and everything. The idea of a transformation now occurring in your head with enough power to really amp up your body. It's scary. I mean, these are the modern realities of what's going on. These are the modern monsters that make me more scared than an actual werewolf.
Yeah, I hear you there. All right, we just got a few more seconds here coming up here. Let's see here.
We got to cover that, though. One of your people asked about killing a werewolf with a silver bullet. We'll have to go over that. And then somebody else asked a question on there as well, too, and I don't know exactly where it was. Gosh darn it.
Yes. Jenny White Bear, I did get your message on Instagram. I will pass that on to the team. Big thank you to Andrew ×2, Michael ×3, Ed, Betty, Snakes, Murray for the super chats tonight. Here we go with the second half of the show starting right now. Second half of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We want to remind you that if you miss portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. The guru is here, the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy. We're talking werewolves and Dogman all night long. Ronald L. Murphy Jr. on Amazon. If you want to check out any of his books, which I highly suggest you do, you'd be really, really worth your book collection to have his team of books up on your shelves. Ron, welcome back.
Hey, thank you very much, my friend. And look how quickly everything is going. I mean, it seems like we just started the show and just flies by.
I hear you. Todd is asking, are there any accounts of someone actually seeing a werewolf transformation?
There are, and it's so strange because Jenny Whitebear, I was just reading about this. She said she worked in a psych facility. Okay, so Jenny, hold on here for 1 second, because if you could type in this, we'll relate to what's going on. So the first time that I ever spoke with somebody concerning a transformation was a gentleman that worked as an orderly in a psychiatric hospital in upstate New York. He claimed that it was the night of a full moon, and there was a patient there who was telling everybody that he was going to transform into a wolf. Whenever the full moon came about, this gentleman started to attack people to the point that he actually had to be restrained. The gentleman that I spoke with said that the patient had unnatural strength, is the way that he described it, and he said that the body, the face contorted, and the body contorted in such a way that it seemed almost unnatural. But the visage of the person did take on a very animalistic point of view. But it was not like the transformation that you would see in a movie, unfortunately. Now, I will tell you this. The way woodcuts were often done in the Middle Ages to show somebody being a werewolf was showing them with disheveled hair and unkept clothing, because what the artist was trying to relate is that this person was not in their right mind and were not capable of taking care of themselves. So the long tradition that this is actually lunacy, where we get the term again, is well documented. So the idea of somebody transforming into an actual wolf, I've never heard of. But the idea of somebody believing that they're transforming into a werewolf, I've heard on many, many occasions.
Awesome. Let's go to another question here. And this one comes from Talderath, Seeker of Truth. How do you actually kill a werewolf?
Perfect. I was hoping we would get to this, okay? So some people claim that we would use silver, okay? Now, why silver? I've done extensive research on silver, and it seems that one of the mystical qualities of silver is not only does it have the aspect of a full moon to it, but the coloring is halfway between white and black. So it kind of straddles two different worlds. So that's the metaphysical quality of silver. But there's also a very rational reason for silver as well, too. And it's used as an antibiotic in many cultures around the world. So it has a curative process as well. But the idea of keeping things that like fairies and vampires and werewolves, creatures of the night away, silver was definitely the way to go. We go back, we have to talk about this, one of my favorite cases, one of the best documented cases of all, the Beast of Gévaudan. This was in the later 1700s, 1760s. So whenever George Washington was fighting down here on the side of the British against the French and Indians over in rural France, there was killings by some sort of very, very large animal that many believe was a werewolf. I have heard reports of upwards of 400 people were killed by this animal. So many people were being preyed upon that King Louis XV himself sent his royal huntsmen after this creature. There were a lot of wolves killed. There were actually two very large wolves that were killed, one that went almost 200 pounds, which is almost unheard of. But the actual creature that was that killed to the point that the slaying stopped was shot by somebody by the name of Jean Chastel, and he used a silver bullet. It was actually melted down amulets from the Virgin Mary that people would wear as talismans. He melted these down, and they were made of silver, and he made this into a bullet, and that's what took out this beast, and that's whenever the predation stopped in Gévaudan in France. One of my favorite stories, my friend. Nobody knows exactly what was going on there, but there were people being attacked, sometimes 3 and 4 people at a time. Oh, wow. People had said it looked like a wolf, but wasn't a wolf. One person said it was as large as a cow. Nobody really knew what was going on. Now, our buddy John Chastel is an interesting character because this is the age of enlightenment, and to prove that you were erudite, to prove that you were an intelligent person, you would have a library, and if you had the wherewithal, you would also have yourself a menagerie, which was your own private zoo. It just so happened that our friend John Chastel did have his own private zoo, and in that zoo he had a hyena. Now, it's very possible in the tumult that was going on in France at the time that he unleashed one of his animals onto the countryside so he would be able to get the money for killing it. And by the money, I'm talking about a vast amount of money. I'm talking about money to keep you and your family's family comfortable for generations. So it's very possible that he let this beast loose and then in turn came out to be the hero. However, of course, this is a world of speculation as well. It has been speculated that somebody in Jean Chastel's family actually was the werewolf himself, and Chastel knew about this that was going on, and to kind of put him out of his misery, he shot his own family member. Great story. Of course, there's nothing to authenticate it, but we live in the world of conjecture anyways, Dave, so this makes a great story.
Very true. And we love your stories, Crypto Guru. Lori is asking, could the dog buried in the churchyard be an Irish wolfhound? They were huge way back then.
Absolutely. You know, the other thing, too, and I wanted to, in about 1200, early 1200s, St. Francis of Assisi came to a town in Italy called Gubbio, and he was supposed to have encountered a very monstrous wolf there as well. that had all the characteristics and all the telltale signs of being a werewolf. And that animal was buried under the altar of the church, and it too was quite large. So I think in St. Francis' case, the idea of the church grim and the werewolf was kind of conflated together and had its own little legend. But I would think that if you would have a dog in life that was a very loyal companion, and it definitely, it served its purpose and it's past its time, that this was a last gift that you could give it by burying it in the churchyard. I don't think that people were so animalistic that they were killing dogs as sacrifices and going back to old pagan practices. I think that you necessarily had to have dogs as guardians against grave robbers and against wolves, because wolves will go in and dig up freshly buried bodies and have no problem feasting on that as carrion. So, you would have these big dogs. And I think that the idea, the folklore and the legends all came together by having these dogs as protectors of the churches, and they in turn became the church grims.
Awesome. Appreciate that. Help, please. First time in our chat room. Thank you so much for coming in. Can there be other dogman species? For example, bulldog men.
I don't think that we've ever had a Chihuahua dog man or anything like that. Interesting. I don't think that there's transformation going on the basis of species, but I will definitely look into that. And if there's ever a poodle dog man out there or a golden doodle dog man, I will definitely let you know and report it on the next Spaced Out Radio.
Nikki is asking, where did the term lichen come from?
Okay, so lycanthropy comes from, so a lot of these great terms become very eponymous. So it's based upon somebody's name. So we have a great king by the name of Laocoon, where we get the name Lycan from. So he was a king of a place called Arcadia. And this was a very, very backwoods area of Greece. Now, remember, when we talk about Greece, we talk about city-states. So we talk about Athens, and we talk about Sparta. And in these places was also a place called Arcadia, which, again, like I said, was the backwoods part of Greece. As the story goes, Zeus would sometimes take human form and visit people. He visited Lycaon here in Arcadia, and Lycaon didn't believe that Zeus was omniscient, so he killed his own son. Lycaon killed his own son and made him into a meat pie so the god could eat it and to find out if he was omniscient, to know what he was eating. So, of course, Zeus knew what was going on. According to some tales, he resurrected the boy. But as the curse to Lycaon and his bloodthirstiness, he changed him into the very first werewolf. And that's where we get that term from. Now, what's so interesting about Arcadia, and I really want to look into this more, not only do the Greeks, but the Romans have many stories that come out of that place. Now, remember, it was backwoods because it was literally the woods. This was a very uncivilized area. And many, many reports of werewolves come out of that area for, over 1,000 years. We have the Lycia games that come out of there, which was loosely based upon the name of Lycaon as well, too. We have the idea of once a year a cult would gather there. One of its members would turn into a werewolf. Just a really neat place full of werewolf lore.
Awesome. Bomber is asking, are there any female bipedal canines ever witnessed with breasts like Patty the Sasquatch?
Usually, and I'll tell you, Bomber, if there are reports of things out there with breast, I would know all about this. I've never heard of a report concerning a canid with the breast like Patty. I've not. I wish that I had, but none here, my friend.
Why do you think that is?
I don't think that people would report it. I think that the idea of seeing pendulous breast, and if it wasn't on Patty, if that wasn't so prominent on that Bigfoot creature in the Patterson Gimlin film, I don't think that people would normally bring that up. We still have our social mores to us. We're still very Victorian in our prim and proper way when we talk to other people. So I think that when we encounter something like that, we're not going to bring that up so readily simply because it's something to be more hushed.
All right. Let us go to the next question here. Ange in Australia is asking, do you know if they have red eyes?
Yeah, absolutely. So that is one of the things that is almost continual in the reports of werewolves. The idea of these eyes that are in its human form, almost yellowish, as if there is some sort of medical problem going on. So the transformation process then takes you up to the idea where these creatures have these ungodly red eyes, or some people describe them as if brimstone was burning within the sockets of their heads. So people have been reporting red eyes for 2,000 years probably on these creatures.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty insane.
And you said earlier, Dave, about that as well, too, about modern werewolf reports. One report in Ligonier, Pennsylvania, which is about 15 minutes down the road from where I live, there was a report of a creature staring at somebody from the woods as they unloaded their car to taking groceries from the store. And that was one of the things that was was standing out so much, that even though it was twilight, these red eyes seemed to glow with an unworldly light, as if they were self-illuminated, staring at these people as they put their groceries away.
That's not the first time I've heard that. Butch Wachowski also had a report about something along those lines. Ron, I can believe in Dogman. Okay? I know people who've seen this creature. I've met quite a few of them, talked to quite a few of them. All right? But the werewolf thing, I have real troubles believing outside of psychosis. Until we actually... And look, I'm pretty open-minded when it comes to the woo, man. I'm very open-minded when it comes to the woo. But this is just one of those hard pills to swallow that I'm just not sure truly exists outside of some sort of psychosis that someone has when a full moon comes around.
Right. And I agree with you 100% about that, because you have to imagine that there is some sort of chemical process in your body that it would allow it to supersede what is already there. You're talking about DNA realigning itself, and you're talking about really hardcore, science that would have to go on to transform somebody else into, or just transform somebody into an animal form. Now, that being said, the idea that it occurs in the mind makes the transformation process extremely genuine for the person that is imagining it. Okay, so I think that is probably one of those sticking points. These people that are believing they're actually transforming into a wolf are doing absolutely insane things to their fellow human beings, and they have no conscience whatsoever in regards to these inhumane acts. And because they have imagined they have become werewolves, I think it's enough to me to accept that they are then indeed werewolves, even though there's not a transformation that has occurred. I think they're still just as dangerous, and it's still just as fascinating as a world to study and to investigate as if they did transform into an animal.
I think they still have little padded rooms for people.
Yes,
like this.
yes. Well, that is the thing, right? And that is what's been going on. And I really want to end the conversation and to end my book that I wrote on Dogman and saying it is just lunacy. It is one of those things that's part of the human condition. It is a psychosis. But gosh darn it, I look at these cave paintings that date back 35,000 years where it shows a human being transforming into an animal. Or whenever I look at the god Anubis that is transforming into an animal by putting the head on. And indeed, I will tell you, we do have representations of Anubis without the jackal-headed, the jackal head on. So the Egyptians believed that it was able to transform as well too. And again, that instances with the Mississippian cultures in Ohio of them going in there and actually taking the human face apart in order to make it more wolf-like. There is still that unknown that drags me back, Dave, that says there's something actually happening. And even though that makes no sense to me scientifically, something's telling me there's more to it than meets the eye.
All right, Solar Warden is asking, are you familiar, Ronald, with the Montauk Monster? Was it a biological experiment or a crypto creature?
Okay, so we could talk about this thing. This is a show in and of itself. So the Montauk Monster, is it a raccoon? A lot of people say it's a raccoon. Doesn't look at all like a raccoon to me, Dave. Does it look like a raccoon to you?
No.
No. It looks as if that, especially considering that island offshore, that there's probably some sort of genetic testing going on, and occasionally from time to time something escapes. If somebody told me that the government is doing genetic testing on animals, I would not bat an eye because I'm sure it's going on. But the idea that there's more going on than meets the eye, kind of like an Island of Dr. Moreau thing going on, I think that we're at that stage of believability. Look, the Russians were doing this in during World War II and during the Cold War, where they were doing outrageous things, splicing two heads onto a dog and experimenting with apes. Now, that was 60, 70 years ago. Think about now what we're capable of doing with our technologies. Without a doubt, our government and governments around the world are doing genetic testing and tweaking and everything else. And there is definitely more to the Montauk Monster than just a washed up raccoon, definitely. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist either. I'm not. I mean, I look at everything very skeptical, but I would just have to say that so much weird stuff is coming from that place that none of this is making any sense. And you're not going to just say it's just simply a raccoon.
But isn't this all part of the debate where we try and figure out what is real and what is fake? People are having these major experiences. I think people, if you hear one person say it, okay, it could be imagination. Mm-hmm. Their eyes see something different, especially at night. Okay, mm-hmm. But when you get numerous people explaining the same creature over and over again, Guru, mm-hmm. I mean, that just has to, pump some air into the, or some fuel on the fire to really help this explode in that there is something out there that we got to find out.
Right. Yeah, and the thing that I keep on bringing up in my research is the idea that I'll keep on saying again and again is the term continuity. In order to be something to know that there's something out there, there has to be a continuation of what's going on. Now, what happens too in our modern era is that there's the idea of kind of negative propaganda as well too. So if something would get out there and we say this is not a raccoon, something else is going on. Now there's this kind of anti-propaganda that goes on and says that everybody believes that now are crazy or they're in the fringe. So a lot of that goes on as well too. So we have to be very careful. We have to straddle a very fine line, don't we? Because just like those werewolves in the in the ancient past that were considered to be lunatics and nuts, it's very easy for mainstream science to call us that as well if we do not look at both sides. But again, at the end of the day, there's so much out there that it just doesn't make any sense to me, and there's more going out there than meets the eye. It has to.
Well, we're going to find out, and we literally have you for another 30 minutes here on Spaced Out Radio as we wrap up hour number 2. I'm telling you, Guru, you're going to have to come back next month.
Hey, you know what? We can start doing a monthly one if you want. I know that I was going through a lot of stuff with work and everything. I would only be able to do Fridays, but if you want to have me come on back on, and man, I will be here at a moment's notice.
Well, you know what? I just happen to have a Friday available in August.
No, then count me in, my friend. Count me in.
Yeah, if you're in our audience, in our chat rooms, if you need more Guru time next month, you let us know as we wrap up hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio tonight. We got the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, for another 30 minutes. Then we're going to bring in John Hudson for the latest UFO news, the Newswire, and the Thought of the Dave. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. All right. Put the 20th on your calendar.
All right, I will do that right now.
All right. Perfect. All right. I'm just going to run my dogs out. I'll be right back. Okay, bud? I'll let you chat with the audience. Hello, gorgeous Lots. How are you? Radiohead, welcome to the show. All right. Guru, it's all yours, buddy.
This is one of my favorite parts. My favorite parts. Let's see here. Betty Spaghetti. I saw one once when I was walking my dog out in the middle of the night. So I would love to hear that report, Betty. Listen, hey, guys. I am on Facebook as well, too. Let me tell you what my Facebook thing is here, because I forget sometimes. So my Facebook page is named, Ronald Murphy. That's real original. You go to Ronald Murphy and friend me, or you could go to Ronald L. Murphy Jr. and you could like my my author page as well, too. But guys, honest to goodness, I love to hear from you. I love to hear your reports. I would gladly interact with you guys because I really am trying to get to the bottom of this stuff. And not only am I trying to get to the bottom of this stuff, is I'm a fan as well, too. I'm a big fan of Bigfoot. I'm a big fan of all this stuff. I want to hear your theories because, remember, there's no expert in this field whatsoever. So, reach out to me. If you're coming up and telling me that you've had experiences, I definitely want to hear these experiences. Let's see here. Eve is half sleeping. Eve, it might be time to go to bed, unfortunately. Let's see what else we have on here. Let's see. So Andrew and Gnomes Trucking Express. I love the name of Gnomes Trucking Express. You saw some experiences. Yes, let's see. Apollo 11. So what lake monster cryptos are in North America? Interestingly, I just wrote a book. Well, not just wrote a book. About 2 years ago, I wrote a book called On Aquatic Monsters of the Great Lakes. So I look at every Great Lake and I go into detail about some of the monsters that are up there. I love the idea of sea monsters. I love the idea of water monsters. And I think I did a pretty good job covering that. So if you happen to get a chance, you can check that out because I really – and it was actually – I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I actually like the book very much. And Lauren Coleman out of the Cryptozoological Museum up there in Maine said that was one of the best books ever written on lake monsters, and I was very pleased. So, yeah, On Aquatic Monsters of the Great Lakes. Ed, I am very, very honored. Butch is good, but Guru is the bomb. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate all that. And so you wouldn't mind me then coming back next month. I used to be a regular on Dave's program, for years. I was on here once a month. But then I thought, do you really want to see and hear me once a month? Because I would assume people would get sick of me. UFologists in Hawaii is the Menehune. In my book on wild men, I have a whole section on the Menehune. And also I deal with them a bit in my On Fairies book as well, too. Yes, the Aberdeen Proving Grounds. Also, it's strange. We don't think about this kind of stuff. But there's a lot of military around Loch Ness up in the Highlands of Scotland as well, too. So one of my theories is that the military comes to these places because there is something otherworldly about them. It's not a coincidence that they show up in these areas, but I think they're there more out of research, or I'm a great believer in the idea of ley lines as well, too. And the Earth has natural occurring energy pockets, and that's very possible why the military find these places so interesting. Yeah, White's Woods was too creepy, and Blue Spruce Park used to creep me out as well, too. Always felt like someone watching, lived in Pittsburgh for long. Jessica McCreary, you're in Ohio now. It's a shame. Have you heard of Brownness in the Lake District? Yes, lots. Yeah, I would love to come on and talk about more about lake monsters as well, too. I think it's fascinating. When we talk about continuity, that is, lake monsters is one of the most continuous going cryptids around.
Hey, Guru, how you doing?
Hey, good. These guys are unbelievable. They have awesome questions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's why it's Guru time, my friend.
That's right. People are already wanting to have shows on lake monsters, which will be an awesome show. Yeah.
Oh, we'll get it going, man. We'll get it going. John Hudson, if you're listening, I'm sending you the link right now. I apologize that I didn't send it earlier, brother. All right. Good stuff, man.
It is.
Good stuff. Peter F., how you doing?
Somebody said they were near the Bridgewater Triangle. I have to get up there. Let's see, who was that? Let me just see here real quick. Lauren, I'm by the Bridgewater Triangle, and I've seen huge things in the lake. Hey, if you want to get in touch with me somehow, because I would like to do a research investigation up there, so get in touch with me some way, Lauren.
Thank you to Cat Chaser for the super chats and everybody else. Here we go with hour 3.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears, especially if you're tuning on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Elytriferous. Elytriferous is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, we introduce Ronald L. Murphy Jr., otherwise known around these parts as the Crypto Guru, and we've been talking werewolves and dogmen all night long. Got to ask you, Ron, before we get back to audience questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Is there a tie-in between dogman, werewolf, and Sasquatch?
I truly think going back through 200 years of incident reports, that there has been a confusion over many things. Sometimes people see Bigfoot and it doesn't act like Bigfoot in a lot of the old reports. Dave, that there were occasions in reports from the early to mid 1800s where the creature that we describe, or what we would describe as Bigfoot now, were seen as wild men that were sometimes seen wearing clothes or remnants of clothes. Very, very strange. it leads to the idea that we might be dealing with, a transformation process, or getting back to your assumptions as well, too. We could indeed be dealing with a wild man, somebody that had some sort of psychological problems and went feral. Very, very possible. But I think that there is definitely a connection between Bigfoot and wild man. Now, one of the problems is if these creatures are indeed flesh and blood animals, how could two apex predators overlap the same area and vie for very limited, supplies? That's one of the problems that I have with this. But, we could work that out later, because I think going back to my buddy Sam Sherry that said there were two types of Bigfoot out there. One was the big lumbering giant, and the other one was the muzzle-shaped grasshole type of creature. I think that he was witnessing a dogman and a Bigfoot in a very specific area.
I think so, too. And there's not a lot of reports out there. And I've talked to Duke from World Bigfoot Radio and other good people in the Bigfoot world who have taken a look seriously at this creature. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of confrontation between these two, whether Sasquatch is a little bit more passive on its own area or terrain, whereas Dogman seems to be a lot more standoffish, if we could use that term.
Yeah. No, I think that is the thing. I think that, and that's quite plausible. Is Bigfoot the type of a creature that basically allows this creature to have its way in a particular territory and assumes another territory, that it completely moves on? It's very possible that we're dealing with something that's very nomadic too, involving Bigfoot. And the Dogman seems to be very specific to locations, as if it sticks around in that area. So it's very possible that a Bigfoot and a Dogman will encounter each other very irregularly, just simply because their natural habitats and their natural inclinations to the way they interact within the environment.
Who wins in a fight? Because I'm telling you right now, I will pay the $59.95 for the pay-per-view of that match between Bigfoot and Dogman. Who wins?
Well, I think that if you put, both these creatures, Bigfoot, 8 foot tall, 8 to 1,200 pounds, and the Dogman 7 foot tall, 400 pounds. Bigfoot got him by, double the weight. But we're dealing with an animal here that has ripping teeth, terrible canines, and these vast talons. I think that the Dogman would probably win within one round, unfortunately.
No way. I'm going Bigfoot all the
You're
way.
Going Bigfoot, is that right?
Straight power and brawn, my friend. Okay. Power and brawn. And you know what? Sasquatch doesn't eat breakfast for dinner. Dogman does.
Yeah. There's precedent in the natural world where we say things like the velociraptor, simply because it had the long talons and these slashing kind of claws, could disembowel very, very large animals. So that is my thing, that I think that Bigfoot would come in for an attack, and the Dogman would simply, juke and disembowel it right there with its talons.
I don't think so. I think that there's too much power and force, that if Sasquatch ever got a hold of Dogman, that literally he'd squeeze the thing to death.
I would like to see it.
Slam it against a tree, much like it does with feral hogs.
And I would hope that would happen, because I would much rather run into a Bigfoot than a Dogman.
So would I. But I still think that Bigfoot wins that one.
I you know what? I will say that I wouldn't think that he would, but I hope that he would.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
I hope so too, my friend, as we continue on with the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, tonight. Now, speaking of Bigfoot versus Dogman, in Pennsylvania, you have the bipedal canine that a lot of people are seeing. Ohio and Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana seem to have the Dogman reports quite frequently out there. Are you surprised we're not seeing more interaction between the two giant creatures?
Oh, absolutely. I do. And I think that one of the reasons why we're not seeing more interaction is because we are not witnessing, the eyewitnesses are not seeing two different things. I think that, especially when the idea of the Ohio grassman, oftentimes this is one of those Bigfoot creatures that is unusually violent towards people or unusually aggressive. And you get into the South too, whenever you talk about the skunk ape and you talk about, all these other creatures down there that inhabit areas around Louisiana and Alabama where they're very aggressive creatures. I don't think that we're talking about Bigfoot at all. I think that we are talking more along the lines of a dogman cryptid. And that is what the confusion is. I think that a lot of times people are seeing one thing and they're misinterpreting it for something totally different.
Peter is asking, what's the likelihood of Dogman or Bigfoot being responsible for unexplained disappearances?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if these are, again, we will go this way. If these are indeed flesh and blood animals and they are, as people say, that they dwell in the woods, they try to be, elusive, they don't want to have interaction with people. But again, what happens whenever the inevitable happens and they cross paths with a human being? I think that if these creatures are flesh and blood, 100%, they are responsible for at least a fraction of disappearances, without a doubt.
Do you think this is possibly the secret behind a lot of these missing 411 cases?
Absolutely. I mean, there is no other explanation. I've been to places where people have turned up missing. I've investigated in the Scottish Highlands. I've investigated in places in New Brunswick that is, very impenetrable. In the places around Sault Ste. Marie in Michigan, and places in Maine that are impenetrable. And people can go missing. But the numbers that we're talking about, Dave, the sheer numbers, the reason we should be tripping over bodies, because a lot of these times people are going missing in very specific locations. There's almost a groundswell of activity in a very precise area. So precise that if we would go in there and people were dying of natural causes, we would readily be able to find their bodies. But we're not. Something is going on out of the ordinary that is physically taking these people so that we cannot find them. That is my assumption that is going on, and that is my conclusion that I've made by not only reading and watching the missing 911 cases, but also doing my own research as well.
See, the weird part for me is how far the people get, whether it's a child, whether it's an elderly person, or even somebody healthy and spry in between, how far they get from their original location.
Right.
Whether they're found dead or alive, when you see someone like a 2-year-old child 24 hours later found 12 miles away, a 2-year-old child is not going to do that.
Absolutely not. Not only those cases, which are very, very, pertinent in my understanding that there's something going out there, but also whenever they will find the person's gear, like their backpack within sight of a house or their thermos up on a rock that's overlooking a highway. It looks as if there's something out there toying with us, and they know that we are looking for them, but they're one step ahead of the game.
All right. Jennifer is asking, Guru, do you think that cynocephaly warriors of Lycia and Canaan a dogman species or just an analogy?
Excellent question. So we could look at the writings, and this goes back to Pausanias, who was one of the great Greek travel writers. We can go back to Herodotus, who, his history is really what gave us the name for history to this day, who wrote about this kind of stuff. But when we go into the Roman period, even Livy reported about these areas that were specific to cynocephaly. India especially was a place that was supposed to be very rife with this as well too. So in very, very quick, I'll sum this up quickly. I think that we were dealing with a genetic disease called hypertrichosis, which causes a lot of hair on the human bodies. And there were people that were being given up and left in the woods, and they would not only find each other, but would be taken in by these groups of people that exhibited this type of phenotypical output of hair. And that is where these legends derive from. I know that is kind of a hard thing to swallow and kind of scientific and probably doesn't have much woo in it. But I think that what would happen is children would be formed with what would be deemed an abnormality or some sort of deformity, and they would be left out in the woods. And the people that were left out in subsequent generations knew that this would happen, and they would take this child into their own fold, and they would be perpetuating. So places like India, places like the Middle East, and pockets would have these groups of people that suffer from hypertrichosis, and that's where a lot of these dogman legends came from.
Behoff is asking, has anyone ever attempted to trap a dogman?
Absolutely, yeah. I was going to say mountain monster guys trying to do that, but like you're talking about legitimately. Absolutely. So my buddy, I call him my buddy now because I spent one day with him, Sam Sherry. He made these kind of adjunct traps trying to catch not only Bigfoot, but also these dogman creatures that he was talking about too. He saw them just another species of Bigfoot. Yeah, but people would try it. I mean, there's traps out there in the woods right now, things that are as simple as bear traps up to something that more like a Rube Goldberg type of apparatus. But people are trying to capture these things, absolutely.
Anybody been even close to being successful?
You know what? I don't think so. But let's play the devil's advocate as well too. What happens if somebody does capture one of these creatures? Who do you call?
True.
And if you call the authorities, what happens to your creature that you caught? See, that's one of the things that gets me as well too. It's very possible that these things have been captured. These things have been killed, that they've ended up hit by cars. But what happens whenever we notify somebody that these creatures have been found or caught or killed? I mean, does an agency come in and whisk these things away? I kind of think that happens. I kind of think that we have a government secret agency going out there. And again, I'm not a conspiracy nut. I'm just telling you that I feel that if something like this would happen, somebody would step in and remove the evidence simply because they would think that we're not ready to believe in this. And also, what do we then do now with our national park systems and everything that? Do people then stop going out into the wilderness? So it impacts the economy as well too. So I think that the powers that be are looking out for the sheep because they don't believe that we're capable of assimilating these kind of things into our daily lives.
Very true. We've got about 6 minutes left with you tonight, Crypto Guru. We're going to continue with some audience questions here. You know, if you were to trap one or try and trap even a Sasquatch, what would be your method? What would you do?
I know that people have used, and this is very ingenious as well too, to use something that requires a hand to get into, that you would have to open something up or unscrew it. Now, we're not talking about capturing the creature bodily, although some people do that. We're talking about trying to obtain DNA evidence. So I've seen people put a can inside of a nest of barbed wire where you'd have to kind of slide your hand in there, hoping that some hair would be removed as the creature pulls its hand away. But I've also seen traps that were designed to lower or to trap something in almost steel cable as well too, that a bear trap would catch onto the leg, and there's no way that you're going to be able to pull this out because the steel cable is tied to a tree or what have you. I don't think those things are going to work. I think that you're dealing with a very intelligent animal that is elusive and self-aware, and it's not going to fall into any of these kind of typical tracks or these typical traps. Although I do like the idea of putting out bait that requires you manipulation to open. I think that is going in the right direction.
See, I think the gifting site is one of the only ways to do it. I don't think you can trap them. I think they are way too smart. I mean, we're dealing with creatures here that have a strange sense of, or maybe it's hearing, of technology for game cams and for anything else that's out there. And this is what concerns me about trapping them. I don't think you can. I think that a Sasquatch or probably even a Dogman is strong enough to rip any type of cable or snap any type of cable. I think that they have this innate ability to smell gunpowder from a long ways away, let alone hearing shots.
No. Yeah, I know. I think that what you're saying, I take a lot of credence in what you say. I think our technology has gotten to the point right now where it gives off something, some sort of sound, some sort of infrared signal, something. It's interesting that whenever we talk about the Patterson-Gimlin film, that was caught on tape. And people are saying that we're not catching things on our digital cameras, or the game cams that are out now aren't catching anything. And I think that is, well, there's several things that could be going on. Number one is that these creatures simply know from the smell, from the sound, from the visualization that of the power source that might be coming out, because we don't understand what kind of spectrum these creatures see, and it's very possible they see the power being emitted by these things that we aren't aware that's there. The other thing that I have to point out is that even if these creatures are flesh and blood, let's just say they are completely flesh and blood, are they living in the same type of spectrum that we live in? Are they of this dimension? Do they slide in and out? People talk about cloaking. Are they of an element that is simply impervious to being picked up on digital equipment? That's a possibility as well.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. As time starts to wind down, we got about 2 minutes, 45 seconds. For people who want to go looking for Dogman or Bigfoot and at least be safe about it, what do you recommend?
I will tell you this, and I'm not being a party pooper, but I don't think that anybody should ever go looking for Dogman. I regret my instance, even though I came with some really extraordinary evidence and some very, very weird things happened to me. I don't think that anybody should go out there with their goal in mind to find a Dogman. I think that's an absolute mistake. Bigfoot is a different matter. I think that what you need to do is whenever you go out into the woods, you have to go out with a very reverent mind, that you're open up to anything that would happen, and you want to put out positivity out there. I think that what you put out into the world will attract what's going in. So if you go out there with guns and you go out there with hostility in mind, you're only going to get hostility returned to you. If you go out there with a very open mind and with a feeling of gratitude and with a feeling of sincere gratefulness, that you may indeed have some sort of communion with this creature.
Well, that makes for an interesting time. 90 seconds, my friend. Let everybody know where they can find your books and your website.
Okay, well, I will tell you this. If anybody is in Pennsylvania or Ohio, this time next Friday, it will be a full moon, and I will be doing two presentations. I will be doing a presentation on Bigfoot, and I will be doing a presentation on werewolves at very historic and very haunted Hillview Manor in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. So that will be next Friday, a week from today, under the full moon. We will be howling at the moon together. If you want to read my books, you can go to Amazon.com. I have written books on Bigfoot and on Dogman, of course, as well. And also, I said during break, feel free to look me up on Facebook. Ronald L. Murphy Jr. is my author page, and Ronald Murphy is my regular page. Reach out to me. Ronald L. Murphy Jr. at yahoo.com is my email address. Get in touch with me. Let's talk about the world of the supernatural for a while.
All right, Guru. We'll talk to you next month, August 20th. We are going to be having you as a monthly guest here, talking all things strange and weird, and maybe next month we'll get into some sea monsters and legends. I'd love to talk about the Great Lakes, my friend.
Let's do it. We'll talk about the Great Lakes next month, Dave.
All right, the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy. Yeah, we love him around here. Told you that he was a fantastic, detailed storyteller if this was your first time getting guru time. Coming up next, we have the unbiased UFO report. We have the Newswire and the Thought of the Day. A jam-packed final half hour of Spaced Out Radio right after this. Boy, Guru got out of Dodge quite quickly. Whispers from the Dark, welcome back. All right, John, if you're listening, come on in. Guru, when you have 5 kids, you learn to get as much sleep as you can when you can. Yeah, the one thing I love about the Guru, guys, is he can talk about anything. He's quite similar to Varla Ventura that way, another monthly featured guest that we have. And I think it's a great, great mix having both of them on the team, and love having them here. Love having them here. There's Stetson John. Check that hat out.
What's up, buddy?
Just living the dream, bud. How about you?
Doing good. Yeah, it was funny. It was actually, I was starting to lose my hair. I was going to shave my head. My wife's like, hey, why don't I buy you some nice hats? I'm like, woohoo.
There you go. Yeah, you don't want to shave that hair. You got a gorgeous mane, man. You don't want to do that.
Every morning I see my daughter's hair, and it makes me really miss mine.
I hear you. I tell my son all the time I got better hair than him. Thank you lots for that awesome super chat. Really appreciate that. Excuse me. Yes, Guru Time is a great guest. We got some good UFO stuff tonight. We really do.
That was a hell of a week to start.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we got it. Hey, Gary, I know you're listening, buddy, because I see you just posted. That's how I know you're still here. Any chance we could get Wednesday night's feature put on there? I got to talk to you about that, Gary. I don't know how late you're going to be up or if you just want to talk about it tomorrow, but I do have a question about it. So we can chat about that if you don't mind. I need your...
Yeah, I saw Mondays was up.
Yeah, we put Mondays up. And you did well. You've done very well.
Yes, sir. It was cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I love that light thing you got going on in the back. Oh, yeah. Dogman is totally heavy metal. Dogman is heavy metal. Bigfoot's more hard rock.
Dogman has totally thrown me off, man, because I wanted to go out and look for Bigfoot seems like this big chewy forced friend, and then Dogman comes into it, and it's like, this is not a happy story anymore. I want to leave. I mean, it's like that's a scary thing if it's real.
Thanks, Andrew. Vinny is asking, is that Mike D from the Beastie Boys? That's funny.
I'll compliment.
Uh-huh. It's good times. Good times. Not a problem, Nicola. Thank you for listening. Yeah, you guys, honestly, you'll fall in love with the guru. You really will. All right,
he's fun because he's got a real storyteller's flair.
Oh yeah, he's an incredible storyteller.
But he keeps it real, which is a rare combination.
Fap, this is very true. Dave has better hair than any mammal since the Big Bang. Very true. All right, thanks, Gary. Appreciate that. But I do have some questions about that for you. Just something I'm not understanding on our YouTube channel. Justin S., what's happening? That's Bill fucking Murray, guys. Bill fucking Murray. This is my Chive t-shirt.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm. All right.
So you got that going for you.
We got about 30 seconds here. Big thank you to Cat Chaser, Lots, Andrew ×2, Michael ×3, Ed, Betty, Fapster, Snakes, and Murray for the incredible super chats tonight. We really do appreciate the love. And we're going to get going here with some good old-fashioned Spaced Out Radio coming up here in about 7 seconds. So sit tight, relax. We're going to get it going. Hey, Donald Stevens, welcome to the show. Final half hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features with you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's time once again for the unbiased UFO report. Every second day, we bring in John Hudson, our UFO reporter, to come on in and keep us up to date with all the UFO news that is going on around the world. And John is one of the tops of what we are doing. It's a brand new feature on this show, and we are loving it as it continues on tonight. John, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave. Very, very happy to be here. How are you doing tonight?
I am doing great, man. Very, very well. Now, Dr. Bob McGuire on Science Bob and Friends seemed to stir up a little bit of stuff on the UFO Twitter world and got a lot of people pretty upset with him, talking about this 23-minute video that Luis Elizondo and Danny Sheehan actually talked about on previous couple of podcasts earlier this week.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because, Bob played it, really clean and was very careful about what he said, as he should be. But the great tidbit that he gave us, which was, partially implied, was that essentially the single frame, the single cell that he saw, that he spoke about many months ago of seeing a very, 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 intense, very highly detailed photograph, is actually from the 23-minute video that Elizondo and Danny Sheehan have been talking about. And so while it was Luis Elizondo and Danny that had been actually, talking about the most, and they were the ones that had added the most kind of graphic descriptions as to, what kind of a video it was. It ended up being Bob that got a lot of the attention because of the fact that we were able to tie this one image that he saw, this one cell from the film, back to the actual 23-minute video, which brings more gravity to it. I mean, nothing's conclusive yet, but I mean, it brings a lot more gravity to it.
Now, we can only assume, and Bob didn't get into this, but we can only assume that's the video of the black triangle coming out of the water.
That's yes, and Bob went into a little bit more detail. He did mention that from it was from his perspective of the picture, it looked like it might be a triangle. He couldn't know for sure that it was a triangle. We also have no way of knowing. 23 minutes is a long time. I mean, 5 other types of ships could have shown up that represent circles, squares, stars, and rectangles, and who knows, right? I mean, so but I think it's safe to assume that there was a large triangle involved. And if you listen to what James Fox has said, this was a very large triangle. I mean, he's been quoted as saying it was a football field on an edge, and if it really came out of the ocean without any effort, that alone is one hell of a thing to catch on film.
Now, one of the things about this 23-minute film, now, I'll tell you, I first heard about that slide. Let me go way back here. All right. I first heard about that triangle coming out of the water from another member of the NSA, or the National Security Agency, who I was having a phone conversation with him. And his neighbor said, "Hey, I know you're all into this weird stuff." Because the spooks all live side by side in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. And he's like,
stay at the same hotel.
Have you heard about this photograph? And this photograph of this black triangle, for people who don't know, was literally circulated all around the intelligence agencies. Didn't matter whether you were NRO, NSA, CIA, military intelligence. It didn't matter. Everybody in an alphabet agency was looking at this. From what I heard, there was close to 1,500 people who got.
This was the intelligence community's version of going viral.
Yes, absolutely. So with this 23-minute video, I've heard McGuire say it, Dr. McGuire, and I've heard Luis Elizondo say it, that if this video ever came out, this would be conclusive proof to absolutely everyone on this planet that there is an extraterrestrial presence here. Are you hearing that as well?
And that is oh, absolutely. And Danny Sheehan has alluded to that as well. And it's very interesting because we've all been able to watch most of them for long enough now that we're all starting to learn their body language and their tones and their cadence and how they speak. And all of them said something to that effect with such ease and with such confidence, and almost with a little bit of mirth, it was just, it's so unbelievably, impactful that, it's unbelievably tantalizing.
Is there any chance, or are you hearing any rumblings that there might be portions of this video coming out?
So it's possible. The problem is that the location it was at when everyone who saw it claims to have seen it was essentially in a, not to go into too much detail, but was in an air gap separated network, right? So, getting that out and getting that to the public is quite a maneuver. They have methods for even catching it if you film it off, your laptop. There's methods for all sorts of stuff. So basically, it would have to come out through official means, which is what Elizondo had said the other night. And one of the challenges I have is that I don't know what the cost is, right? I don't know what the cost is of actually going through a video like that and actually taking out all the proper artifacts and stitching it back together into a contiguous film. That might be a very expensive, very labor-intensive process, and I don't know who would pay for that. I don't know what group would fund that. So I don't even know practically how it would happen. But my hope is that such a package, such a delivery would be delivered to members of Congress. And depending on which members of Congress get to see it, that increases the probability that we might.
All right. I don't think that video will ever come out. We might get 2 seconds, maybe 5.
Yeah, I don't. I think the picture. I think the picture's got a shot. I think the cell that Bob saw has a shot at getting out. But I'll be shocked if we ever see the film.
All right. You've got some reaction to Luis Elizondo being number 68 in the most interesting people and topics of interest in People Magazine's latest article. Did we ever think that we would have a UFO guy in People Magazine?
Not just a UFO guy, right? I mean, I encourage people to listen to some of Ross Coulthard's recent interviews where he talks about the research he did on Lou Elizondo, both in the United States and back in Australia, where he talked to intelligence professionals within the Australian armed forces who knew Elizondo and knew background. And this this is a serious guy, right? I mean, he's done some pretty crazy stuff, and for him to be on People Magazine, I mean, I saw an interview of him where someone brought it up, and I mean, you could hear it in his voice. That guy was embarrassed beyond. I think it completely blindsided him. I really do, and I'm sure his kids are having a ton of fun with it.
Oh, if I was one of Elizondo's children right now, I would be going up to him and say, Hey, Dad, can I get your autograph for this? You have to.
For Christmas,
he'd
get a big poster of it.
Everybody that Elizondo is working with or has worked with has probably texted him in the last 48 hours to absolutely rib him for this. You have to. That's the military code.
Oh yes. Someone needs to make T-shirts. I mean, this is major league. This is and you got to wonder. I mean, I'm not familiar with the process involved, but my understanding is that there's a readership voting aspect to this ranking, and so what it might be alluding to, which is a really good thing, is that Elizondo has permeated a lot more minds outside of this community than we realize, which is a good thing.
I think your point is bang on there. It really goes to show that they are paying attention and that the mainstream articles and magazines such as People, which is not a smut magazine like the National Enquirer or anything like that,
no.
but it's usually been a reputable magazine, and for them to be able to put UFOs in that, I mean, it shocked me in a good way. It really did.
Yes.
Whether or not you love Elizondo or you believe Elizondo, I think John is really irrelevant at this time comparatively to the magnitude of having him in that magazine in the top 100.
I couldn't. It's a very from a sociological point of view. It's a main thread crossover event.
And
for sure.
And I will say this before we change subjects here, as we only got you for a couple more minutes. If there's anything more to light Dr. Stephen Greer's anger towards Lou Elizondo, it's going to be this, because Elizondo has just stolen away Greer's popularity across America because of this.
Oh, I had not thought of that. Now that's funny.
That is very funny.
That's funny.
Like if I'm Lou,
funny.
I'm calling up Dr. Stephen Greer and I'm saying, "Hey, Steve, have you checked out who's number 68? Who's number 68, Steve? What's your number? What's your number, Steve?" That's what I would be doing.
Man.
That's the hockey player chirping mentality that we have around here. All right. Finally, before we let you go for the night, we have John Greenwald from the Black Vault. He is always very, very concise with a lot of the reporting that he does and the Freedom of Information Act information that he releases to the public. Almost, it seems, on a daily basis. He's that active about it. But recently there's been some debate because we first heard that there was a 78-page report. Then we heard it was 178 pages. We ended up, as the public, getting 7 pages, 9 pages, if you include the bibliography. All right. Then we heard something strange. Daniel Sheehan, the lawyer, saying that the top secret report was well over 400 pages long. But Greenwald from the Black Vault now comes.
All of it.
Tell us about Greenwald in this story.
So basically, what Greenwald claims that he has been told by through very official means is that the briefing that Congress got was only about 17 pages. And, when you really think about it, I mean, let's just assume that there was that you're talking about 144 cases. How do you put 144 cases into 17 pages? Right? I mean, you're talking about, 2 lines per event. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. However, there's a point the other night during Fade to Black where Jimmy Church texted Elizondo and said to him, Green reporting 17 pages, what's up, and Elizondo got back to him and Jimmy Church read it on the air, and basically I'm paraphrasing here, but basically what he said was that the original report that he saw was in the 70-page range, but that an executive summary, which is what Congress would get, would be significantly less pages. So he did not endorse the 17-page claim, but he did leave an opening that it might be something that small, because it would be an executive summary. And what I think is interesting is if you look at the way these different numbers have been called out and what people's different perspectives are of numbers, you have Danny Sheehan, who probably isn't quite as aware of the deltas between OSAP and ATIP and the UATF report, and 400 pages that he mentions actually maps better to the OSAP report that Tim McMillan has confirmed is actually 400 pages. So that actually better explains what Sheehan saw. Then when it comes to Bob McGuire, we got to remember that Bob McGuire was talking to, his connections went through the National Security Council. The National Security Council, I mean, you can go see who's in it. I mean, this is a council run by the President of the United States. These are people with significant access to national security issues. And so, I think it's very possible that the 70-page report, that 70-ish page report that Elizondo originally mentioned and others had mentioned, that Bob then mentioned, is very likely, and this is my hypothesis, is very likely the kind of document that the National Security Council would get. That something like a 17-page summary of that document would be what Congress would get. And I'm sure the members of Congress were allowed to ask for more, right? But here's the executive summary you're going to get. And that what Danny Sheehan was referring to was actually the 400-page OSAP report. So I think you can actually explain where all these numbers come from. But wow, what a mess, and how confusing is it for anyone that, for all of us on the sidelines that are watching this and trying to figure out, who's doing what and who's saying which.
You got that right. John Hudson, thank you for your great first week of the Unbiased UFO Report. We will talk to you next week. Let's get to the news.
Thank you.
The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR News Wire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky. Yeah, let's just get into it. Apparently, laughter can kill you. It is possible to die from laughing, but don't let this stop you from your favorite sitcom and giving a little chortle. Yes, people have been known to faint from laughing, which can lead to injuries. Some narcolepsy sufferers report temporary losses of consciousness triggered by laughter and other strong emotions. And then there are rare fatal brain conditions that can cause uncontrollable laughter as well. So make sure if you're laughing, make sure it is worth it. Nothing Bob Saget, or Whoopi Goldberg, they're not funny. Ray Romano, not funny. Don't waste your laughter there. All right, here's a weird one. Elon Musk, we all know this. All right? Well, he's planning to get humans on the moon by 2024 or so, he believes. But here's where it gets a little bit weird. In 1953, a book was published that predicted the plans for an Elon to actually take humans to Mars. On December 30th, Musk quoted the popular line from Young Frankenstein on Twitter, "Destiny, destiny, no escaping that for me." Despite its fictional origin, the quote is in fact referring to ideals and predestination, in which the life of every human is already predetermined, either by divine design or by genetics. Quoting this on Twitter led to a little bit of a surprising revelation. Fellow Twitter user Toby Lee responded, "Speaking about destiny, did you know that von Braun's 1953 book, Mars Project, referenced a person named Elon that would bring humans to Mars? Pretty nuts." And of course, it is right there in the print for everybody to look at. The book he is referring to is Mars Project, A Technical Tale, written by Werner von Braun, a German-born aerospace engineer and space architect. How cool is that? I'm telling you, that is fantastic. We got time for one more here. Well, let's go to this one. A Nevada-born woman broke into a dentist's office, stole money, and then pulled 13 teeth from an unconscious patient on 2 separate occasions. According to Washoe County Police, deputies allege that Laurel Ike, who is not a dentist, broke into a dental office where she claims she had formerly worked. She allegedly stole about $22,861 in cash and checks during the May 3 break-in, the Washoe County Police Sheriff's Office said online. Meanwhile, the tooth extraction occurred on a different date than the break-in. She also admitted to using anesthetic disposed of by the office. Oh no, she doesn't have any troubles whatsoever, does she? Well, apparently she does. The 42-year-old was arrested, charged with 2 counts of burglary, 1 count each of grand larceny, conspiracy to commit burglary, and performing surgery on another without a medical license. I wonder if that person is getting free teeth. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air. Tonight's Thought of the Dave is, tell me why you wouldn't want to run into a certain cryptid creature of your choice. Nick, dogman or bipedal canine? Live in the Adirondacks, constantly hiking, and always looking out for anything out of the ordinary. But this cryptid just seems like it's straight out of hell. Muse, reptilians, I can just imagine how that would look or sound or move. Davey, dogman, imagine trying to get him back on his leash. True. Magnus, I wouldn't want to run into a dogman because I'd probably end up being a puppy chow. Lori, dogman, even thought I've heard it many times in the woods go dead oppressively, hair-raising silence. Hopefully the big clan of big people have enough of them to tell them to piss off. Alex, Mente tribe, because mythical naked pygmies with spears make me nervous. Josh, I mean, isn't it easier just to find out which cryptid is slower than a human and go from there? Tyler, Mothman has always intrigued me, but I'm not sure I'd want to interact with it. And Will, I would not want to be eaten. Of course you wouldn't. Of course. Joe gets the final word. The Fresno Nightcrawler. Come on, man. Haunted MC Hammer Pants? That's terrifying. Thank you to everybody taking up and taking in the Thought of the Dave on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you to Captain Shirk for the Newswire, John Hudson for the UFO Report, and to the Crypto Guru for joining us tonight. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms in YouTube, LGAB, Twitch, Facebook, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo Train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night.
$15 could save you 15% or more.
My dad used to say that.
Sure, yeah. It's from Geico.
Yeah, whenever I would ask my dad for life advice, he'd sit me down and say, son, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. And look at me now, a well-adjusted adult with a drawer full of plastic bags I'll never use.
Okay, I'm confused. Was your dad a licensed Geico agent?
Nah, he was just a real good dad.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock.